Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of our newly rebranded Nitro RX podcast. I'm one of your hosts, as always, Thiemo and Albers-Daly, and I'm joined once again by my brilliant co-host, Nabila. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How about yourself?
Got a lot going on today, both from the weekend and in this podcast, because we're not just joined by one guest today, we're joined by two, and we're just going to have to flip a coin and decide where to start. So we've got radio presenter Nick Bright joining us. Thanks for being here today. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, guys. Excited to talk to you about some Nitro RX, actually. Something I'm pretty new to, but I really enjoyed the action this weekend, and I can't wait to sink my teeth into it.
Nitro is a good weekend to actually get stuck in, like you say, and you know, it was such a great weekend, and we kind of lucked out with our second guest as well, because we're also joined by NRX top of the class this week, really, and Tommi Hallman. Welcome, Tommi. How are you?
Hi, I'm very good. Thanks for the invite. Nice to be here.
So I'm just going to kick things off with where do we want to start on such a great weekend of action. I think the perfect way I could find it to sum it up is it was the sequel we all wanted it to be. What do you think, Nabila?
Yeah, I think the track was certainly delivered this weekend, and it threw out a bit of damage for people and some curveballs in there. And excited to dissect and go into what happened. What about you, Nick? How did you find it being your first event you've watched?
I enjoyed it. Do you know, one of the things that I enjoyed the most about watching the event this weekend was how many races there are, just how much action there is. You know, I've watched lots of different kind of motorsports in the past where you seem to be waiting around a long time between the different races, not only within a particular class, but you know, when there's multiple classes as well, you're waiting even longer. But this was like a really quick turnaround between all the different heats and then all the different classes as well. So I felt like I was always being entertained. And then on top of that, even when there wasn't something happening on the track, I thought the guys did a really good job kind of with the access that they get, you know, behind the scenes, talking to the drivers. There's no kind of, you know, like with some sports, it's like the press don't really get in and don't get to speak to the guys until it's like a press conference or something like that. With this, I felt like really included as a viewer. So for me, yeah, I just thought I was entertained from start to finish and I really enjoyed it.
As well, from you were saying about there's so much more action this weekend is because they kind of rejigged the format previously from Lidenhill. And for you, Tommi, all that more action, was that a lot of fun for you to get stuck in from the driver perspective as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, there was a lot of action on the track for me. And also, it's nice to have other activities like autograph sessions, for example. So really nice to get to meet the fans and talk to them, and especially the younger ones. It's really nice to have something, you know, talk to them and make them happy. So really enjoyed the whole event this weekend.
It's nice to see that they are really focusing on bringing kind of Nitro to the fans. And I think that's going to be a really big thing for the whole championship, because you, as you said, Nick, you don't see it in many championships where, unless they're kind of pre-scheduled things, but it's a lot more inclusive. And I think that's going to be a really nice format to bring forward into other realms of motorsport.
Yeah, and Tommi, I just wanted to ask you actually from a driver's perspective, like it looked like there were a lot of fans there. Obviously the pandemic happened, so this is probably the first year back where you're seeing lots of fans at events again. What's that like for the drivers? Have you been kind of really excited to the fan then and you know, then be a part of what you do?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really nice to have the fans back. And obviously, I have been going from the smaller series and categories up all the time. So this is actually the first time for me being in such a big events like Nitro RX. And now to have the fans also there. So it's like a dream come true in a way, because I like to have the atmosphere there and all the people cheering. And obviously now we were in Sweden next to Finland, so I think they were maybe a bit on the Swedish driver's side more than me, but obviously they were still having a blast when the podium ceremonies and everything was going on, even though they didn't get the home win. But it was nice to have the fans, and they were really having a good time, it seems. So really nice.
About the Swedes having a lot of representation there this weekend. I mean, there was one race that was completely dominated by Swedish drivers completely, so there was always a guarantee of a Swedish victory there at least. But one of the Swedes who made his debut, which is our first notable talking point for this weekend, is that Johan Kristoffersen made his Nitro RX debut, Nabila, and straight away just looked like he was at home, which is both impressive and annoying, because is there anything that he cannot do?
Yeah, he's one of those people that can jump into anything and seem to just make it work no matter what it is. And I think it's really funny because we had a chat with Michaela before Sweden. She was saying, oh, I'd love my teammate to join. And all of a sudden, her teammate did join. So it was really cool to see him like competing and really fun action the whole weekend. And it's funny because Johan still won. I think that's the name you need to have clearly, or Tommi. So long as you're from Scandinavia, I feel you have a really high chance of winning rallycross.
Yeah, that's true. But also, I think, rallycross has been a big sport in the Nordics since the beginning of the sport. But I think the Swedes are still, maybe there are a lot of Swedish drivers in each category, and also in the World Championship, the Swedish drivers are there are many of them, and I think the Finnish ones are maybe still on the way a bit. There's not so many, but luckily, at least for me, I was right on the top all the time. So trying to be myself better than the amount.
But what's the domestic scene like in Finland, though? Have you got drivers coming up behind you trying to get into the sport as well?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I don't know what's actually the reason why there isn't so many Finnish drivers in Nitro or the other bigger series, but rallycross is a common sport here, and there is a good Finnish championship also going on, and there are a lot of drivers. So I don't know exactly why there isn't more in Nitro, for example, but I think there are a lot of good juniors coming up. So maybe in a few years there will be more.
That's really cool to see. I mean, it's always funny because you look at most of the off-roading sports and it's always the Finnish or Swedish, like general Scandinavians that always seem to be at the top. Is there any reason for that? Do you guys just learn to drive earlier? Do you just have the choice of wanting to get in a car at a younger age and just go mess around on gravel roads? Like, how did you get involved into wanting to be in off-road?
I think one of the main reasons is that obviously we have winter, and the best way to learn how to drive a car, for example, on gravel, is to drive on the ice track. And that's where you can, reach the limit without being worried to crash the car, because obviously there's a soft snowbanks everywhere, and you can really understand how the car is behaving on slippery surfaces. So that's, I think, one of the main reasons. And obviously rallycross has been and also rally, there's been a lot of drivers here all the time. And for me, example, my dad was driving when I was younger, driving rallycross in Finland and also in the European series actually. So that's pretty much how I got into the sport. And straight away, when I had enough age to join and start racing, I immediately got in. So yeah, that's a bit of a heritage also.
Thiemo, just before you jump back in, I just wanted to ask, elaborate on that, because you spoke about the fact that in the Scandinavian countries, you learn how to drive on snow and ice. You obviously did really, really well this weekend, not on snow or ice, but later on this season, we're going to be heading for the snow and ice in Canada. So do you think that's where do you think there's an opportunity for you to dominate there as well as what you did this weekend in Sweden?
Yeah, probably there would be a chance. Actually, I have no plans yet about the rest of the season, because I was actually first of all confirmed for the European races, so I'm still open for the rest of the season. But obviously that would be, I think, a surface where I would be strong. I haven't been driving lately so much on ice, but it's still familiar for me, and I think, for example, this weekend there was quite a lot of gravel on the Swedish track, especially the last part, and that was where I was the strongest. So yeah, loose gravel and ice, there are a lot of similarities. So yeah, I think I would be good in ice also in the Canadian race.
You could do it. You could, essentially, is what you're trying to maybe say there.
Yeah, let's see. I still have no plans, but obviously I'm open to any good ideas. So let's see.
Speaking of new ideas, Nabila, there was a new format for this weekend with as was mentioned previously, more races and more battles, especially with the battle brackets on Saturday. They clearly listened to the fans, and it made the whole weekend much more enjoyable. I think for me, nothing like it was. I'm not saying that was bad or anything by any stretch of imagination, but it was that nice step up, and it was just great to see them just genuinely getting that fan engagement. Like you were saying, it's nice to see. Like Nick was saying, you get to see behind the scenes way more than you would in other forms of motorsport, and they kind of showed they're serious about that side of things and that they're listening. So, what did you make of all of that?
I thought it was great to see, and I think what was also really exciting is how the drivers took it on, and when they were winning the battle rounds and stuff, they were as excited as winning a whole race. And I think that kind of the kind of battle brackets brings out a whole new excitement to the races, because it's not just you have to wait till the final on Sunday for your winner. You get winners throughout the weekend, and I think having those battle brackets just creates, as you say, a lot more excitement for a fan. And I'm hoping that they continue to kind of elaborate and grow on the feedback that people are giving back to them, because the series has so many things that it can incorporate and do, and it has the ability to kind of bring it in a lot quicker than other series that I've seen. So I think it'll be really excited to see how they expand on that. And also it's a nice touch to be given a trophy to a driver that wins a battle bracket too. It just kind of, it brings excitement to the fans too, because they're just not just getting that final action on the last day.
So it shows that the Sunday is obviously the main event and everything. It shows that the Saturday is important, and there is stuff you can get. There are points available, there are trophies available, and it just gives you that extra incentive as a driver to race that bit harder. Maybe you don't need that already, but just in case you did. And as a fan, like you say, it really cements why you should be watching the whole thing over the weekend and giving you more action. And to further your point there, you mentioned that other motorsport series aren't necessarily as quick to implement changes, and even then, it doesn't always work as well. It was kind of surprising, but pleasantly in a way that, and maybe this is just me going into this area and we'll see what we make of it, but it's kind of like a non-regulated sport in this way. It's not FIA, it's just a group of people doing their own thing, and it seems to go a lot more smoothly when that is the case in this example than it has been when something like Formula One, or is it Extremely, when they've had to make changes to their overall race weekend format. And it's just very interesting to see that difference. And maybe I'm reading too much into that, maybe I'm not, but it's just an observation.
Yeah, absolutely. Throwing that back to you, Nick, like being new to watching this, and obviously I'm assuming you've seen other race series about there. Do you find that having that kind of unregulated, are you enjoying it more? What, like, to watch it as a fan and being brought into it and wanting to continue on?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, I think that it is the fact that it's unregulated didn't really cross my mind actually when I was watching it. It's still just as professional as other different motor series that are sanctioned by different governing bodies. I didn't think that it looked unprofessional or anything like it. In fact, I thought the coverage was really, really good. I always felt informed. And one of the things that I really liked about it is, before I started watching it and I was kind of looking at the rules and stuff like that, I was thinking, oh, this is quite confusing. You know, there's all these different categories but actually once you start watching it, it's really easy. Well, I found it really easy just to snap into, you know, exactly what was going on and work out what was going on. But that's partly because, you know, I thought the commentary team were really good at explaining what was going on as well. But like, it's actually not that complicated when you watched a couple of races. So by the end, I was properly dialed in. And yeah, I've got to say, I've been really wanting to say this since I started watching it on Saturday, that for me, it's all about the Crosscars, just in terms of how fun they are. I just think that I watched them and I was like, I'd love to have a go at one of those. Nabila, actually, as somebody who, you know, races cars or has done in the past, have you ever been in anything like a Crosscar?
I haven't, no, but funnily enough, the first thing that we noticed when we did the Lydden Hill review was watching back on those crosscars. They're insane.
It is
like
mad.
I would really love to get in one. What about you, Tommy? Have you ever driven one of them?
Oh,
I've actually driven twice, but just a little bit. So I'm not really familiar with them, but they are extremely fast. Obviously, they are really, really light and a lot of power. But for me, the tricky part was because I've started driving with the front-wheel drive cars back in the days, and obviously it's completely different with the rear-wheel drive, and you have to be really aggressive and all the time a bit sideways to make it work. Otherwise, you are going to have massive understeer. So that was the tricky part for me, to really throw the cars into the corners, because the modern ride style with the normal cars is to be smooth and not really throw them so much. So it was difficult, but it was also really, really fun.
See, as somebody who doesn't race cars, I would just be like, you race that car, you can get into one of those and you'll be great at one of those as well. So that's a really, interesting bit of analysis and insight that you've given there. I just wanted just a word for was it Jimmy Osterberg in the final of the Crosscar? Come second, I think, but like there was smoke coming out of his Crosscar at one point, and the door had fallen off and was like in the car whilst he was driving, and it was like flapping around. He's still going. I just thought things like that adds to it for me, because how like if you watch certain racing series such as, and I understand the reasons for it, by the way, this isn't a criticism, but if you watch kind of like, I don't know, Formula E or Formula One, or like certain race series like that, if there's a bit of the car flapping off, it's like you have to come into the pits and get it sorted, whereas this was like crack on and try and get past the guy in first. And I just really liked that.
I think that's a big thing on all like of the off-roads though, like even in rally, like the things that you take out with you are duct tape and cable ties, because you can fix anything with duct tape and cable ties. And I think that is super exciting about the whole realm of rallycross, in that you don't need your car to be in perfect condition, and who really cares if a bit's flown off the side. Like I've lost plenty of bumpers and things like that in the process. And I think that just, as you say, adds to that excitement. But bringing that back, Thiemo, when you were talking about the cross carts and also the whole kind of new format, we talked about a lot of that in that first episode of things that we'd like to see. And I think the best thing is they have started to implement those, and it's really cool to see it right away.
As well, there were certain things which, for me, like Nick was saying as well, when in other motorsport series, you kind of like there'd be an issue there, but it's like, no, just crack on, get on with it, and just adds that fun. I mean, there was one race, I forget which one because there was so much action, but one of the cars retired, but it was still on track, and it was like, oh, will we get a red flag? Probably not. It's only 3 laps, it'll be fine. It's like, that's not generally how health and safety works, but I don't mind in this instance, because you're just like, you don't want to interrupt the flow of a 3-lap race. And as well, the other bit that I loved was the fact that stewards actually decided something in a race that was 3 laps, and they just made sure we knew what was going on before they went over the finish line. And for someone who's been watching Formula One for ages, it's just very refreshing that it didn't happen about 6 hours after the race, and we then had to do a whole new podium where there's no fans or anything. So the fact that we got that sorted, I was like, right, who are these stewards? How do we get them into the rest of Formula One and the rest and all these other motorsports? Because they need to go and teach them all a lesson.
It's a good point, actually, and Tommy, like I think what Thiemo's alluding to, there was in the supercar final, you had Fraz in the lead, and then he clipped one of the barriers, or one of the bollards, sorry, on the Joker, and that essentially got him a 3-second time penalty, and he lost the final because of that. How much communication is there in the car, and is every driver different? Do you like a lot of communication or not a lot of communication?
I think every driver is different, and it's all about their preferences, but I usually like quite a lot of communication from my spotter, usually about what's happening behind and what situation with the Joker tactic, everything like that, because I also want to think, the race, how is it going? Maybe I can choose the Joker myself, and what is the situation like overall. So if I don't know what is going on around me, then it's impossible to think anything. You just have to trust on the spotter 100%. But I really like to know what's going on, and obviously if someone is right behind you, it's good to know that you need to defend a bit, and if there's nobody really close, you can drive all the own lines and try to be as fast as possible. So I think for me the best way is to have quite a lot of communication. About the bollards, I actually didn't see the supercar final, but we had quite a clear information that if you clip the bollards in, I think it was the Joker lap, you will have a penalty. But I think otherwise there was quite free statement that you can maybe hit them a bit, and there's not going to be a penalty. But I think that the Joker lap bollards was clear that that's going to be a penalty if you hit them.
I enjoyed Travis. He joined in commentary for the final there, and he was basically saying, "Oh, but the bollard didn't fall over. Come on, let him off." It's like, yeah, but he still clipped it. So it is what it is. But it made it really exciting because other than that, Fraz led from the very beginning, and he would have led from the beginning to the end. But because that happened, it kind of added this extra layer. And as Thiemo said, at first we didn't know if the penalty was going to happen, and then we found out whilst the race was still going on. So Thiemo, from your perspective as somebody who watches lots of different motorsport and comments on it, that must have been really handy, like you said, because you knew you know what the narrative is once the race is finished, as opposed to like, you being like, well, this guy's won, and then 3 hours later you're like, no, he hasn't won, someone else won because this happened.
It's so frustrating all the time. We had it last weekend for Formula One and some of the feeder series in France, and we were like, oh, that was a really great race, enjoyed all of that so much. It was nice and close racing, you got a great result out of it, and then find out on a message later on, because it's not even on like official social media, you've got to go looking for this then until someone does spot it, that, oh, actually you've got this driver's got a 5-second penalty, and you're like, oh, well, that kind of, it just takes it out of it, especially if it's someone on the podium. If it's off the podium, it's still frustrating, but it doesn't impact it as much and doesn't take that enjoyment out of it too much. But when it's a podium position, and when the motorsport series itself, whichever one it is, makes such a effort out of saying, oh yeah, we're going to get better at this and make sure that you do find out in good time and everything, and then they still don't manage to do that, but then Nitro can do that on a 3-lap race or whatever it is, and I mean the course is that long, so it's even shorter in amount of time. Like, oh, you can do it. So why, if these people can do it, this little ragtag team of bandits maybe, then why can the official people with all of the technology and all the money not be doing it? But I'll go off on a rant if I'm not careful, so I feel like I should move on to Group E. Eklund, you won the Group E final for this round, Nabila, and well deserved, I reckon.
I think so, yeah. I was hoping, I'm not going to lie, I was hoping after Larson's accident he might have just taken it, because, that's the comeback story of the century, really. Like, let's face it, you cut yourself in the neck and literally not even a month later you're back in a car, out competing and fighting for the win of the overall again. But no, it was really exciting, and I think they were really close, like right till the end. And that makes such a difference, like having that kind of close competition. But then what I did notice is their team seems to be quite a bit superior to the rest, because by the end of the race there was a good gap between the two of them. Like, they were still fighting really closely, but the rest of the field was really far back. So that would be interesting to see, because now obviously that team, I think it's JRX or DRX, really bad that I don't remember, there's just too many acronyms, but they are the ones that seem to be dominating this. So it's going to be really exciting to see once they move, especially to the American rounds, which obviously Travis and Connor have a lot of experience on, and Vermont Sports Car team. I'm really intrigued to see how it plays out, for sure.
No, definitely. And I think that it'd be interesting to see if there's much of a home advantage for Travis and the rest of them there, because, I mean, as much as Travis is clearly enjoying himself both in the car and out in the commentary box, which, by the way, I do love that we have that ability to just grab people and just bring them up, and then Coley will just go off on a wander about and go and talk to some other people, but we're still covered and we still have great commentary for the whole thing there. But Travis could do with a bit more luck in his own championship, I think.
Definitely. And what about you, Nick? Like, how did you find, obviously the Crosscar's got a special place in your heart now. What did you think of the Group E and the electric top series?
So I really enjoyed the Group E, just because obviously sustainability is quite a big thing. We are heading towards a more green form of motor racing, I guess. But it takes some getting used to, in terms of, and I'm sure you guys can all attest to this, in terms of, like, when you go to motor racing or rally or whatever it is you're going to, you're expecting to hear noise. And with these cars, you don't hear noise. You just hear that. I mean, the only noise you hear is them kind of scraping along the gravel and stuff like that, which is a bit weird. Obviously, you hear a little bit of a whistle as they go along. But I am fascinated by how fast they are, and also just how they're basically, well, like almost like a world's first, aren't they, in terms of that style of car being able to do that amount of acceleration that quickly. I thought they were really, really interesting. Tommy, what are your thoughts on them, actually, as somebody who races in one of the other categories?
I think they are really interesting, and obviously the power is insane. And obviously, if you have an electric motor unit, it will be like instant power with the throttle. So would be really amazing to try that sort of car. Hopefully, I will. But yeah, it's really interesting class, and I think as you said, it's getting a lot of getting used to without the engine sound. But I think on the event they have solved it quite cleverly, because there was every time when they were starting, there was like a heartbeat sound from the speakers, and then when the race started to go, there was like rock and roll music full from the speakers, full volume. So like getting the adrenaline to the audience that maybe the engine sound would have gotten before. So, but I think that was quite clever from the Nitro guys.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. You don't really see that, like when you're kind of sat from behind watching it on TV. It'll be really cool to experience that in a race and see that atmosphere, because it looks like watching that in person must be incredible, super exciting. And I feel like you can get so much more involved if you're there sitting with it. And it's cool that they've thought about the fans and that adrenaline for sure.
Surely, Bila, you're going to go to the ones in America. Surely you'll be there.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. And we'll get Tommi over there driving too.
Yeah.
Let's just have Team Nitro podcast go over there.
I mean, I don't know what I would do in that situation. I can't fix anything. I'm not a really fast driver. I mean, I could do all the media. There we go. You can send me out to talk to like the people.
You can fix gaffer tape and zip ties apparently, so it can get you up to speed on the mechanical side of it in no time. All right.
If that's all it takes, actually, that's a really good point. Yeah, I can do some gaffer taping and some zip tying. Tommi, if you need a mechanic, I'm fully qualified now, my friend.
Yeah, definitely.
And if it was Backrund winning for Group E, then we've got to talk about NRX, because it'd be very rude not to with Tommi here, because you won that. Talk us through that from your perspective.
Yeah, I think Saturday race was quite straightforward. I was leading from start to finish, and I think it was Eklund behind me, and he was really close in the beginning. But then I think after lap 4, when he choked, then I got a bit of clean air behind me, and then I could pull away a bit. But on Sunday, I think it was the craziest race I've ever been driving, because there was so much going on everywhere. I was trying to pass Mattis Jansson for the lead, and then George McGuinness was right behind me and had to defend a bit and then attack a bit and then defend again. And then George went to the choker, and I was still fighting with Jansson in the lead. So we were losing time. I had to defend and go to the choker on the next lap. Just got in front of George, then made a huge mistake. And Jansson went on the next lap to the choke and just got behind him. And then he made a mistake, got past him, and then there was a lot of contact. And suddenly, I think it was Kasper Jansson then leading on the last lap. And because we were having such a fight behind him, he was getting quite a good gap, and he had still the choker on the last lap. So I was a bit scared that is the gap going to be too big for me? But I just got in front of him, and I think the whole top 3 was inside 1 second in the finish. So it was like full adrenaline from start to finish.
That is awesome. It was very exciting. Oh, I feel like, Nick, you've got stuff to say.
Well, it's what the fans want to see, isn't it? You know, like, don't get me wrong, it's great going and seeing somebody win by a long way and stuff like that if they're a really skillful driver or whatever. But I think as a fan, you always want close races, and you always want to be in a predicament where you don't know who's going to win. And that whole race was pretty much like that. Was it lap 6? I think it was lap 6 where all the drama unfolded, and you couldn't ask for anything better. And I'm sure that Travis and the rest of the team are probably looking at that thinking, this is the advert that we want to stick on YouTube. So well done, Tommi. You basically made the advert.
Yeah, thanks a lot. But it was really like, for a driver also, for me, I've been always a big fan of rallycross even before I started driving myself. And the craziest fights on the track are the best for the drivers also. That's what really gets me fired up and try even harder to win. So it obviously it's always nice to win, but if you lead from start to finish by yourself, it's not the same. Definitely when you have to really fight for it, and it seems at some point that there's no way you're gonna win this, and then somehow you end up in first, and you have really given everything. So that's the best feeling that you can get.
Definitely. I think so I've got to ask, like, do you find that you put in a little bit, or you want to be able to put on that showmanship because the fans are right there? And I guess it's a bit different to obviously rallying. Like, you're in the middle of the forest, you see the fans for maybe like 1 second, but what's super cool about rallycross is you have that full kind of transfixed on that arena that whole entire time. So do you as a driver feel like you push more into creating that show for them as well, or are you just sticking to your game plan?
I think, yeah, you have to obviously try to think the result first, try to do your best, but in the end, it's a show and you are doing it for the fans. So at least for me, I like to put in, a bit of extra, try to push a bit harder. If there's a place, I go next to the other driver, try to go in his mirrors and do all sort of that stuff. And I think it was lap 3 when I was in the biggest jump on the back straight, coming next to Johnson flat out over the jump. I was scared that the car is gonna break in pieces in the landing, but I think that was the best moment. I was thinking that I'm not probably gonna go past him, but it's gonna like be mad to try and look insane. So yeah, definitely I'm like thinking about the fans also. And after the finish, doing full drifting mode and jumping on top of the car. So trying to get the fans also what they are wanting.
The adrenaline was pumping, though, I'm guessing, at that stage as well. So you kind of did you forget yourself almost for a second? Is that why you were on top of the car, or did you always plan on jumping on top of the car anyway?
I've always been dreaming of it. I've never, so that was my first time, and now I thought that it's the right time to do it.
The first of many, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
And I mean, one more mention, because, as we've all alluded to, we absolutely love these cross cars. Enholm won the final there. And I mean, it was also close throughout the entire weekend. You wouldn't have been really mad if any one of the drivers had won that category. And I think, like Nabila was saying earlier, we just need to all go out and have a go and then properly together at some point. Maybe we can convince the Nitro people to have that as a feature for one of their race coverage weekends. But Nick, as the new person to be falling in love with that category, what did you think of Enholm clinching it for that one?
Yeah, it was the thing is with the cross cars is I found that pretty much every race something exciting happened within reason. It wasn't always something massively exciting, but there was always something good going on. And as I say, because they're really loud, I think what they GSXR engines in the back of those motorbike engines essentially, and because of that, you really get that loud yin and yang in comparison to the E-Class. That comes, it was either before or after it, so I felt like that scheduling was good, but the final, it wasn't quite exciting as Tommy's, let's be real. Wasn't quite there, but as I said, I enjoyed the fact that there was drama in terms of, I don't know, because on the commentary they were like, is his car on fire? And then the smoke seemed to just disappear. Did he put the smoke? Did he put the fire out himself? I don't know. Has he got a fire extinguisher in there? Is that why did he smack the window off to get the air in to put the fire out? I'm just coming up with loads of different random scenarios here, but there was smoke coming out of Osterberg's car. On the last lap or the penultimate lap, it was near the end because they didn't know if he was going to catch him. And yeah, then he's second with all that going on. Only just though, he nearly got caught. But yeah, it was exciting, and I'm already looking forward to what happens in. Well, we've got to wait now, haven't we? Is it October now? The next event. So yeah, that's a bit of a shame, but I feel like I'm involved now that I've watched it. I'm committed.
And Nabila, it was a difficult weekend overall for Excite, but they did manage to claw it back a bit in the end. So kind of mixed fortunes there.
Yeah, definitely. It was a very interesting weekend for them. There was a lot of problems, like you saw in one of the finals or something, where Ollie Bennett was out with problem. And seeing him get into that stride with a win in one of the finals, but they just seem overall to be struggling a little bit. I'm not sure whether that's going to be something. Well, they've got plenty of time to work on it, if it is car issues before the next round. So hopefully we will see them improving, shall I say, and hopefully with less accidents and problems, because the first round didn't go so great for them either, did it?
The other exciting thing potentially for next time, like you say, they've got a big gap in between rounds now, but also it should be Jenson Button jumping into the car next time round. So see what he can do straight off the bat and see if he's been how closely he's been watching all this footage and see what he can learn from it.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's going to be really exciting seeing Jenson jump in. I think he has a little bit more of familiarity with the other cars on track, which I don't think Chris Meek has done that much rallycross, and with rallying you've got no one driving next to you, so that's a whole new added layer of something to think about. And but I think it's going to be really interesting to see Jenson doing the off-road. I know he did the one in Extreme E. I'm curious to see how he finds it.
So, Tommy, then, we want to ask you a few questions as we've got you here. It feels like we should do that. It'd be a little bit rude not to. So, as we were saying, you've come off a win in Sweden. How do you think that track compared in comparison to the Linden Hill track? And which one kind of stood out to you more, and do you have a favourite?
I think it was like completely opposite than Linden Hill, because Linden is a really fast track, a lot of straights. And this one was first, second gear, more than half of the lap. So it was really tight and slow. Also, I think this was more difficult, really technical and difficult to have consistent laps. I really like Linden Hill, to be honest, but first laps when I did here in Sweden, I didn't really like the track. But now as we got in the racing, there was a lot of action and overtaking, and I really like the Strangnes track also, so I don't really know what was my favorite, but I think this track was also very, very good.
Leading off of that, obviously, the next track was meant to be your home race, Finland, and obviously that's been cancelled due to the track not being ready yet. I'm sure that you're quite disappointed in that, but you touched on it earlier a little bit, but would you like to be able to head out to the States in the NRX category, or would it be a change of category if you were to head out?
I would be interested, obviously, to go out with next class. I think that's the only one that is a possibility. It's extremely tricky with obviously having a lot of costs to get the car to the US and the logistical side mostly. But I'm seeing all the options and really trying to see what I can do. But can't really tell anything at the moment, but hopefully I can get something sorted. It would be fun to continue, especially now as the first half of the season has been going so well.
Yeah, it would be great to see you out there and seeing that NRX category with a lot of the European drivers move out there, because it would be nice to see what you think of the track difference from Europe and what they've brought compared to what their original tracks were in the US.
Yeah, I think watching from last year, the US tracks are like totally different, obviously more dirt, bigger jumps, and I think also the surface, the dirt is quite different than what they have in Europe. It seems like it cleans up quite a bit, and then there's like a hard surface under it, which doesn't really exist in Europe. Here it's also only the soft, and it gets really rutted. So it would be interesting to try. Looks huge jumps, obviously looks insane. It looks exciting. So yeah, would be nice to be there.
I'm interested to see, the fans that come out in the States. Obviously Travis is repping the USA, and I know in Sweden there are lots of Nordic fans of this sport, but I wonder if the USA will represent in the same way. Nabila, you're based stateside, I guess. What's the feeling like out there?
I'm really intrigued to see what it's like at a Nitro round, because the Americans, when they catch on to something and when they enjoy something, they come out and support in full force. I went to an IndyCar race at the beginning of this year and it was packed, and you watch events and everything out here. And if you've got that fan base and following, everyone wants to be there. Everyone wants to be involved. And I think Nitro has done that perfectly from what I saw of fans last year. But I think going to a race out here must be epic, because that's the whole focus of Nitro. They've thought about the fact that we need to make motorsport accessible to fans. How can we do that? And Rallycross is the perfect way, because it's all in-house. It's all in the one like kind of racetrack and it's lapped and things like that. And you can see everything all at once. And I think it's astronomical how they've managed it, and they've also then brought it global. But that kind of fan feeling is really exciting.
Yeah, Americans love to do everything big as well. And for you, actually, Tommi, as a driver, what did you make of the fan experience, or the driver and fan experience on the weekend just gone? What do you think? Well, what did you like, and what do you think could be better?
I think at least the autograph session was really cool, because obviously I have never been part of something like that before. It was first time for me in Lydden Hill to be part of an autograph session, and it was really cool. Maybe there could be more. Obviously, I know that the schedule in the race day is really tight for us. For example, I think we have less than 1 hour between the starts usually, so it's full of stuff. We are operating with our own team, so have to be a bit organizing there as well, even though I'm not really doing anything to the car, but trying to stay on top of things and taking, control that time at the right time in the next start. And so there's not like maybe a possibility to do so much between the races, but maybe something, obviously you are doing this for the fans, so you can't like do it too much. So always something would be good, maybe extra, but I know it's really difficult to do in such a tight schedule.
And then as well, we've been asking every driver on here that we've been talking to if they could describe Nitro in 3 words, what would those 3 words be? So Tommi, can you complete that challenge for us and describe Nitro in 3 words?
Exciting, spectacular, adrenaline.
It's good. It's good 3 words.
So I like it.
And then I have a question that I personally ask everyone, because I'm always super, super curious by it. But I don't know if you've ever done any rallying, so if you have, awesome. But if you could pick any car, and it can be any car in history, it doesn't have to be the modern class, what car is it going to be, and what rally would you want to compete on?
Actually, I've done 2 years of rallying in the past in the Finnish Junior Championship, and actually in 2018 I was second in the Finnish Championship, and Sami Pajari won, who is now the current Junior World Champion. So I didn't lose the bad one, but difficult question. I think for my side in terms of driving style, I think I like the modern cars. They are quite sensitive, and you don't need to throw them around so much. You can really be precise. So I think it would be some of the modern cars, and obviously for me, Rally Finland is the rally as a fan. So would be definitely WRC Finnish round.
Okay. Have you ever been to watch it?
I think I've been there every year since 2008, and I will be there also next weekend, or actually this weekend, as it's the Finnish round of WRC now. So, and actually I will be there driving a Finnish digital rallycross final in the Finnish Championship. It's in the service park of the event. So I will be watching on Friday and racing myself on Saturday.
What's the jump called again there? It's
I'm not going to even try to pronounce it. Is it? I'll let him do it.
in Finnish jump or what?
The Finnish jump, the big one.
The big jump in Rally Finland.
There's too many of them. I don't know which one you're talking about.
The one beginning with, it's in the stage with the O. Is it Omnipohja?
Omnipohja.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's the Keltaisen talon hyppy, which means yellow house jump. Probably that one. That's the classic jump in that stage.
You said it so fast. What was that, Nabila? You try and repeat it. I don't think we're going to try, just in case we upset everybody in Finland, including you, Tommi. But yeah, that looks epic, and you'll have an amazing. I mean, you've been loads of times anyway. I'm very jealous because the fan experience at Rally Finland looks incredible.
Yeah, it's like unbelievable to see how fast they are going. Like obviously you see them in TV and it looks fast, but to be a few meters away from the road and they just fly by, it's like unbelievable. You cannot describe it if you haven't seen it.
It's one of those events I've always wanted to go to, and hopefully I will eventually. And it was one of my bucket list rounds until I found out I have issues with my eyes, and it's probably like the last place I'll ever be able to compete on now. But it's just the atmosphere there, and I do have to get myself over there for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It's a must for a rally fan.
This is again sound like another Nitro RX podcast trip at some point. If Finland's on the calendar next year, we'll try and time it well, and then can all get over there and do a little bit of everything.
Yeah, we can all go
It's not timed too badly with the calendar, because it would have been, with the rallies next week, the Finnish one would have been at the end of the month. I guess there would have been a couple of weeks in between it, but they kind of thought well about it and having both of them in the same month.
So I want to move on as well and just talk about a few of the drivers that impressed us most over this weekend. And for me, she is improving slowly but surely. And I just want to give her a shout out. It's Michaela Arlin-Kotlinski. Nabila was saying we chatted with her recently, and that episode will be coming out sometime in the near future. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. But it's interesting to see the difference between what she's done previously and how she's getting on in Nitro. Because if we look at Extreme E, for example, she's just absolutely dominating with Johan there, and Johan obviously just comes in and does what Johan does. But it is interesting to see that she's struggling a bit more with it, and it's kind of refreshing in a way almost, but it's not as easy as Johan makes it, and maybe shows you why he is as impressive as he is. And it's good as well that she's moving in the right direction, and hopefully then by the end of this season, she will be right up there and at the very least fighting for the wins. And we were talking about the commentary as well earlier, and I mean, it was making me laugh a lot at various points, and especially because there was another driver in a particular class whose second name was Michaela, and you kind of got a bit confused at times where you're like, is it Michaela he's talking about, or is it Michaela? And then Michaela, and then there was talk just shipping them just because of the names, and it made me chuckle. And again, it's just something that it's just refreshing in commentary, because it seems just again like they're just at a pub just watching this casual, they're sitting out on the banks just watching the race, and that it's not really their job. We're just hearing a couple of people talking about it. So I just loved all that, and just want to give Michaela a shout out. But I think, Nabila, you've got a fairly good choice as well for a driver that stood out for you this weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Well, mine was a couple. I thought that it was cool to see Chris Meek doing a lot better than he was previously. So he's definitely one of the ones that stood out for me. I liked seeing him fighting at the front. He seems to have got his footing, as I mentioned before, like he's finding his way. And I think it's a real shame that he now has to get out the car and give it to Button, because I think he would have come into his own in the next couple of events. And also it was really nice to see Conor Martel and Travis Pastrana go at it in their heat together. And nice to see that there's like no team orders at all being played in something like this, and they literally just went at it till the end, with Martel just pipping Travis. So yeah, it was really fun to watch, and I'm excited to see how they all progress going into it. And obviously I did think Tommi's event and how Tommi was in the NRX category was really cool and exciting, and I do hope that we get to see more of him in other events at the end of the year. What about you, Nick? Did anything stand out to you?
Well, other than Tommi, of course, who I was gonna say, you guys were just leaving it. Other than Tommi, that amazing lap 6, I did really enjoy Fras over both categories. I just feel like he's really infectious personality, really good for the sport, but also a really skilled and exciting driver. But also I wanted to shout out Chris Meek as well, just because he basically had 5 practice laps, didn't he? And that's it. And then still just sent it, as they love to say. And yeah, I just feel like you stole mine a little bit there, but like definitely he was impressive and somebody who deserves a honorary shout out, because to do that on 5 practice laps was seriously impressive. And as you just alluded to, Nabila, it's a shame that he's got to hand the car over, but I am excited to see what Jenson Button can do, actually. Obviously one of the most famous guys coming into it, and it's exciting that you're getting drivers from lots of different categories and classes and areas all showing an interest in this. So, you know, that could be a real masterstroke and a big move by the Nitro team.
It does certainly make me think of other drivers in other categories who maybe they're on the way out or are struggling in the category they're in and thinking, I'd love to see what you could do in here, just because it's not that it's not competitive, because it's extremely competitive, but it's the reverse of it in a way as well, where you've just got this really chill atmosphere. It feels like, or at least it comes across that way. And okay, yeah, you're all having good fight, and it's nice that you can have that between teammates, especially like you were saying, Nabila, and even Travis on the commentary was saying like, oh, just because they're teammates, so what? Just let them fight, let them go for it properly. And it's just great to have that kind of, you're not restricted by team orders. It's just very refreshing. And so it'd be interesting to see, we've seen this gradual progression with Nitro over the last few years of where it's going from like one-off events to an American championship to a global one, to see then, right, who can we attract from all these other different branches of motorsport and see what they can do. Is like, just because you're good over here doesn't mean you're going to be good here. Or maybe it does, but we don't know, and it adds that extra bit of spice to it. And I mean, talking of drivers just coming in and impressing or entertaining, I do have two other little shout outs that I want to do, because I now have a new absolute favorite driver in Eklund, 75 years old, and just absolutely having a massively fun time with it. And Travis absolutely loved him. He was saying about he's exactly what Nitro wants. And I just love that A, he's racing at that age, and B, that he just seems so enthusiastic from him. I mean, he did 2 jump starts and everyone's like, we don't mind. It's just a bit fun at the same time, and just very infectious. And then he kind of crashed out of one, but it's the fact that he's there, and they're all there just having a nice time, and none of the other drivers are annoyed that, oh, there's this older bloke there just trying to muscle in and everything. Like, no, it's just really chill and just really good vibes. And then Borden's as well in Crosscar. I mean, they mentioned on Saturday and again on Sunday that he's got a broken elbow, and his doctor kind of worded it in such a way that you can have some surgery, but then you won't be able to race. And it kind of said it in a way that it's an option for you. And obviously, as soon as you give a racing driver that option, they're not going to take the perhaps more sensible route of that. And just kudos to him for just laying it all out on the line. And again, we're saying about how with the door hanging up on one of the cars as well, and the smoke coming out, like, these kind of things are not issues in Nitro. It's just like, if you can still do the job and get it done relatively well, then why not? And it was just great to see that. And I think as well, it's like, hopefully now with the break, he can go and actually get the surgery and then be ready to go back by the time we go racing in October, because I would not like to see the size of his elbow by that point.
Yeah, right. They said it was like golf ball sized. If he leaves it, no doubt it'll be basketball sized. Who knows? But just a word on Per Eklund. Actually, he's another great thing about him is he didn't tell his wife he was racing. That weekend either. I mean, what a legend! 75 years old, jump starting all over the place, sending it, and not even telling your other half that you're. I'm just going down to watch. It was amazing. I hope I'm like that when I'm 75.
Tommi, I want to bring it over to you. Like, obviously, you being a driver, who, if you have any, and you got to watch any of the categories, or even the people you're competing against, who stands out for you as a driver this year, or like who have you looked up to that's kind of helped and influenced your driving styles?
Unfortunately, I didn't have too much time to be watching the other class, but I think, Andreas Backerud and also Robin Larsen they are on top of that game, and I think both of them have had some difficult years, like recently in the sport. Backerud was one of the top guys in the World Championship, I think 5 years ago, but then he had a few years he wasn't really driving or not really having everything, the package together, and now he's back in the top fights all the time, and like they are destroying the others. So I think they are like two guys that I really look up to, and they are doing the job perfectly.
That's exciting. No, I appreciate that, and it's cool to see so many different people coming back, and Nitro giving that chance to some drivers, as you say, that hadn't been driving in a little while.
Yeah, exactly. And the way they are doing it, like others are not even close. So I think if you want to have a comeback, that's the way to do it.
Absolutely.
As we've alluded to a bit earlier on, we now have a massive wait until the next round in Minnesota, which is until October, which is criminal if you ask me. But I've got to say that Sweden was just what the doctor ordered, and as well, like I was saying before, that after such a busy weekend of motorsport across all these different categories, it was a very nice way for me to round out my 2 days on that one after all of that, and it was just very chill. And yeah, no, I loved every second of that. And if this is what round 2 is like, and they keep building on that, then I think we're all in for quite a great season. And Nick, I think you're definitely going to be watching the rest of it, and are probably a very new addicted convert now.
Yeah. As I say, it's a shame I've got to wait till October, but hopefully by then we can secure some funding and get flown out to Minnesota to be there reporting on it within the vicinity. Wouldn't that be good? Let's get that cracking, because I think to watch it in the flesh would be amazing. October in Minnesota though is probably a bit nippy. I'm guessing might be a bit cold come October in Minnesota, but yeah, exactly. Bring my gloves, I'll be fine. You know what I mean?
And Nabila, I think you definitely want a shotgun ride with Eklund after all of that as well.
Yeah, right.
And we have to say, of course, a massive thank you to both Tommi. What a fantastic weekend you had, and we really appreciate you coming on to chat about your experiences. I hope you enjoyed being on.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure to be here with you, all of you.
Yeah, lovely speaking to you, Tommi, mate.
Cheers.
And thanks, Nick, for hopping on. Appreciate you joining us, and excited to see that we have a new fan converted, which means there's so many more that can be.
Exactly. Once they listen to this as well, they'll be all over it. Trust me, they'll be all over it. And hopefully I'll chat to you guys about some more rallycross in the future, man.
Yeah, I mean, we can't wait, and again, we just need the excuse to, and I don't think we're going to need too much of an excuse to at any point in the future. We're going to get withdrawal symptoms if we're not careful before October, so we're going to have to figure out what to do on that one. But in the meantime, then, Nick, where can people find you if they've enjoyed listening to you today?
The best place to find me is Instagram, I guess. I'm not quite like Nabila up on TikTok just yet, but Instagram, and it's just my name, Nick Bright. No ones or underscores or any complications around it. I've managed to get the actual name, which makes a change. So get me there, or listen to me on the Radio 1 Extra or 5 Live, wherever you like.
So Nabila, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram, and as Nick says, TikTok, trying to pave my way into, being in the 21st century as it is. But just my name at Nabila Rally on TikTok, and Nabila Tejpar, and obviously our official page of Nitro Podcast.
Indeed. And Tommi, have you got anywhere that you want to promote while we're on the subject?
Yeah, sure. I think Instagram is the place to follow me. That's where I'm the most active. So just my name, Tommi Hallman. Just like Nick said, no numbers or anything. Just the name. That's simple.
We are very straightforward here on this podcast. We don't have any mess or fuss on this one. And if you enjoy seeing me, then I've got my 2 other podcasts, the Undercut podcast for everything F1 and On the Curbs for just everything motorsport, because I just chat with people from all over the place there, including Nabila, which is how this whole thing started in the first place. So go back and watch that one if you want to see a bit more of her. And in the meantime, we will be back with an interview episode with Michaela Arling-Kotlinski, which should be out within the next week or 2, I would assume, when you listen to this, depending. And yeah, thank you again, Tommi and Nick, for being here. And Nabila, we will see everyone again very soon.